You see, your investment into this marriage and into these kids is for the long haul. The goal is not to get them to respond exactly the way you want to right now. It's to build lasting bonded relationships over your lifetime.
Yeah.
So this is about having the courage and the tenacity to keep showing up regardless of how quickly or slowly the kids might be responding. Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your stepfamily from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork.
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of stepfamily life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
Well, hey everyone, we're back, and we want to thank you so much for your grace and your patience with us as we took a little time off last week to mourn the loss of Kim's dad. And we also had an opportunity to celebrate his life.
That's right.
It was a good trip, wasn't it, honey? Yeah. Well, I hope that last week, just those 5 minutes, those brief thoughts that I gave you on grief and loss maybe challenged you to consider what your kids might be working through.
Yeah. So true.
That's what we've been talking about for a little while.
Now, in episode 37, we explored the 5 primary reasons kids tend to resist their step-parents. And much of that is connected to loss.
Yep.
And the kids are sometimes in the process of grieving what they've lost.
That's right.
So even when we're not fully aware of those things, they're still there under the surface, and we need to understand that. So we did ask you to sit in some emotional discomfort. And if you made it through that episode, we give you big kudos.
Good job.
Yeah. In that episode, we did talk a lot about why these losses can cause a child to resist their step-parent. And in this episode, we want to offer you some specific strategies that you can use that will help break down those walls of resistance and build some connection.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So before we dive in, would you just take a moment, if you haven't already, to subscribe to this podcast? You really don't want to miss any of the content that's going to help you move your blended family forward. And also, would you consider leaving us a rating over on Apple Podcasts? And if you have just a couple of minutes, please leave us a review as well. We really want to hear your feedback, and we really covet that and appreciate that. So let us go ahead and just get started with this episode. You know, I often say that step families are a bit like fingerprints, right? There's a lot of commonalities between all of our fingerprints, but yet each one is very unique. And that's just like blended families. There's some common things that we can talk about, and yet there's some unique challenges that each individual blended family tends to wrestle with. So for today, what we're going to do is we're just going to touch on the single strategy for each of the challenges that we talked about back in episode 37. And we're going to talk about the one strategy that's been most effective that we found with all the couples we've worked with over the years. Right? So that's how we're going to take this. We're going to take those 5 primary reasons that kids tend to resist step-parents. We're going to give the most common and most effective strategy to combat that.
And again, there is no easy fix or silver bullet.
That's right.
But there are some things you can do that can really make a difference. So that first reason that kids tend to resist a step-parent is that the step-parent can represent the end of a dream. And we talked about that back in episode 37. And this is often a hard one for a step-parent to hear because it suggests that it's their fault that the first family marriage ended up in failure. But unfortunately, step-parents, the truth is that you've entered into a family structure that was broken and hurting long before you came along. And of course, it really doesn't seem very fair that the kids see you as the barrier to their happily ever after dream of their parents reuniting. And it isn't fair. But that's most likely because they were somewhat protected from all of the details and the disillusion of their parents' marriage and divorce, right? All the problems that happened. And that's actually a good thing that they weren't in the middle of it. They don't quite understand. It's a difficult thing to accept that kids hold on to their hope that everything that's been broken in their family will somehow get fixed. But in most cases, they really aren't emotionally equipped to understand all the reasons why that's not going to happen. They just don't get it. And this can be really hard for a step-parent to accept. And sometimes a step-parent will want to adopt the attitude that their stepkids just need to be set straight and grasp the truth from that adult perspective so that they can stop blaming you as the step-parent, right?
I just want them to get it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is understandable why we would want that, because it's a painful position for a step-parent to be in. But in the end, holding on to this kind of attitude and pushing this kind of agenda will actually sabotage your relationship with your stepkids, and ultimately it can be really detrimental to the kids' well-being.
It's true.
Most kids really don't care why the marriage ended or who was at fault with their parents. They just want all the history to revert back to when everyone was together and somewhat happy, right?
From their point of view.
Yeah, exactly. So that they can have that sense of being a family again, right?
Right. So instead of trying to set the kids straight or convince them that they should feel differently than they do, you really need to adopt a new strategy and an attitude that's going to allow you to let this go and focus on your own security. And that means security in your blended family as well as for yourself.
Yeah.
So your strategy is just to live your truth rather than trying to prove your truth. So what does that mean? You're most likely privy to all the reasons why your spouse and their ex are no longer together and why there's no chance that they'd ever reconcile, whether you were in the picture or not, right? But trying to point all this out to the kids is only going to add to their confusion and pain. Instead, you can keep yourself focused on all the reasons why you and your spouse are together, how you fell in love, what you love about each other, what you love about the kids, and all your beautiful plans for the future. And you can hold on to that sense of security and emotional stability even while the kids are resisting you or possibly even blaming you about their parents not being together anymore.
Yeah.
Now, this helps you to stay grounded in the truth about yourself, your marriage, and the future of your family. In her book, In Their Shoes, Lauren Reitzema reminds us that the reasoning and decision-making part of the brain, that prefrontal cortex, is not fully developed until age 25, right? It's unrealistic to expect that children will be able to differentiate the healthy dynamics of your marriage from the unhealthy parts of their former nuclear family. They simply don't process divorce from a logical perspective. They respond to what they feel. You see your marriage as a healthy new beginning. They see it as a painful ending. We want you to know is that this is okay. You don't need to convince the kids or prove that your marriage is better than how things were before. A better approach to creating long-lasting bonds is just to simply live out the healthy marriage and the family that you want them to experience and let them come to their own conclusions over time. Yeah. You see, kids need time to go through their own process and grieve the loss of their dream, and they deserve to be given that time of healing. Yeah. As they mature, as time goes on, and they start to come to their own conclusions, they often begin to accept more of the realities around why their parents divorced. They understand a little bit more about who their parents really are and what each parent truly wants to experience in life.
Sure.
And then as they come to those conclusions, it's actually really common for them to start letting their walls down, and their resistance toward the step-parent begins to reduce.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember when my daughter Annika was really young. I mean, maybe 7 or 8. She was pretty young. And she used to ask me, why can't you and Daddy be together? And this was even a couple years into our marriage.
That's right. Yeah,
she was still wondering why. And I would give her short, simple answers that would appease her curiosity without, dumping all the ugly truth about our dysfunctional relationship on her. I'd say something really simple like, honey, I can't be in a relationship with someone that I have a hard time trusting.
Sure, yeah.
And she'd accept that. Now, later, when she was a teenager, I remember her making this big, profound comment to me. She had this epiphany kind of out of the blue, and she said, you know, Mom, I can see why you and Dad didn't make it together. You're really different people. And I'm glad you ended up with Mike. He's much better fit for you. I remember her saying that.
That's pretty sweet.
And this didn't happen because I sat her down and explained why I couldn't trust her dad and shared all about the deception and the disappointments. She came to this by her own conclusion, and it took time for her to get there.
Yeah, and she certainly didn't come to it because I did it.
No. And you know, kids are really smart and really observant. They figure things out and they begin to understand the truth over time and in a way that they're able to handle it.
That's right.
This is the best way for kids to figure these things out, not to be told.
It requires a lot of patience from us. So at this point, you might be wondering, well, good grief, how long is all this going to take? Okay, remember, I said blended families are kind of like fingerprints. There's commonalities between all of us, but each one is unique. And that means that the amount of time that this kind of thing takes certainly depends on your unique dynamics and the uniqueness of each child.
Sure.
But let me challenge you a little bit about the concerns about how quickly this is all going to happen. You see, your investment into this marriage and into these kids is for the long haul. The goal is not to get them to respond exactly the way you want to right now. It's to build lasting bonded relationships over your lifetime.
Yeah.
So this is about having the courage and the tenacity to keep showing up regardless of how quickly or slowly the kids might be responding.
Exactly. And for now, be mindful and wise. Don't allow your own discomfort or insecurity to take over.
Oh, that's hard.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But patiently wait as the kids work through their emotions and discover the truth on their own timetable. Yes, you may be perceived as the person who ended your stepkid's dream. But you'll be caring for them best when you give them the time they need to grieve the dream so that they can gradually begin to accept a new normal that does include you.
That's right.
So for now, just live your truth rather than trying to prove your truth.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. The second reason stepkids tend to resist a step-parent is that they perceive that step-parent as a threat.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I got to tell you, I hated this reality that at some level I was perceived as a threat by my stepdaughter, Annika.
No step-parent likes
I know.
this.
It's tough.
awful.
I mean, I felt like, well, what the heck did I do to her, right? But the truth is that this point has nothing to do with anything I did or didn't do to Annika. It's not about anything I said or didn't say to her. It's really just about the dynamics of a child grieving the loss of their first family experience and now having to adjust to another person in their life that seems to have this positional authority and is probably going to create more changes that they never actually asked for.
Yeah, they're
right?
powerless.
Yeah. Chances are this is a really hard one for you to swallow too as a step-parent. Your intention is to add value to the family, right? It's to love the kids genuinely, to make choices that have their best interest at heart, but kids generally aren't focused there. Kids are worried about all the ways their parents' new romantic relationship is going to impact them, and they're typically focused on the negative,
Sure.
those things that they don't want. Yeah.
So the question is, how do you go about lowering your threat level? That's what we want to do. We want to reduce the threat, and we can do that by showing the kids that you're for them.
Yeah.
This is a consistent message. And to do this, you need to understand the root of what they feel threatened about. The most common thing step-parents threaten is the child's relationship with their bio parent. And it's not that hard to understand this. They had their dad or their mom all to themselves. And then this new person shows up on the scene, and suddenly their bio parent's attention and energy has shifted, right? They're spending all this time on the phone, going out on dates, and even inviting this new woman or man to your family's activities. So what's so special about him or her? Why are they stealing my time away from my mom or dad? And when everyone is under the same roof, the emotions can amp up and now your threat level is even higher. The step relationships that seemed to at least be okay before the wedding now feel impossible and sometimes even combative.
Yeah.
And in many cases, this is the first area to focus on. Lowering that feeling in your stepkids that you are somehow a threat to their time with their bio parent or their relationship. You want them to have a sense that you're for them, not against them.
That's right.
So important.
Yeah. And one of the simplest ways to work on that is to actually honor and protect their one-on-one time with their bio parent. And if you really want to supercharge this strategy, then you need to let the kids see your excitement around this time that they get to spend with their bio parent, that time that actually doesn't include you.
Yeah.
You see, it's not always enough to just make room in the schedule for your spouse and their kids to get some time to themselves. It's most impactful when you can celebrate that time at some level. So you can show excitement before their time together with something like, hey, I'm so excited for you and your dad to get some time to hang out tomorrow. Or maybe show interest and excitement after that. Yeah, man, I bet you guys had fun. What was the best part of your adventure?
Yeah.
Right? And you're showing them now, not only are you willing to step back and allow them to have that time, but you're actually engaging in the celebration of them enjoying that time with their bio parent. Yeah.
You're supporting it. Now, this might feel like a step backwards to you. It might even seem counterproductive, right? It feels like you want to build bonds as a blended family. You need to spend lots of time together, right? Well, the reality is that the pressure and the tension is typically the highest when the whole blended family is together. So intentionally creating this time with their bio parent communicates that you're for them and ultimately increases their sense of security, which is going to lower the tensions when the whole family is together.
So allowing for this one-on-one time actually improves the full family time, right? Yeah.
And it lowers your threat level.
Yeah.
So what you're doing here with the strategy is you're really creating an atmosphere where the kids can discover for themselves that you are for them, that you are not a threat.
That's right. And the key word there is discover. You see, kids need to discover the truth about your character and your intentions for themselves. No amount of lecturing or attempts at convincing them or forced family bonding time is actually going to make a difference when they're locked into this attitude that you're a threat. They need to discover that for themselves, and they will when you're consistent in the way that you show them that you're for them. So reduce the threat by showing the kids you're for them. And by the way, this message of being for them is only one of the 3 most important messages that step-parents need to regularly communicate to their stepkids. And an easy way for you to learn more about the other messages is to join our Patreon community at what's called the supporters level. And as a thank you gift, then we've got a couple of ebooks for you that are going to help you learn more. And we'll link to that Patreon community over in the show notes.
Sure.
All right. So the third reason that kids tend to resist step parents is that they already have 2 parents and they just don't see the need for any more. So let's talk about how to deal with that. In episode 37, we talked about how these kids just don't want more parents. They've already got these 2 parents, and that's enough people telling them what to do. We've talked about the importance of creating positive interactions with stepkids throughout this episode, but we also need to figure out how we're going to reduce the negative associations that would certainly include how discipline is delivered within the home. We're so excited to let you know about something brand new we've created just for you.
We've realized that with so many episodes available here on the show, it might feel a bit overwhelming to find the topics that matter most to you. That's why we've created a simple tool for you to receive a personalized playlist focused on your current struggle or your biggest challenge.
That's right. It's called the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz. You'll answer just a few questions, and based on your responses, we'll email you a curated custom playlist of episodes that are specific to you.
This simple quiz will direct you to the most impactful episodes that pertain to you personally and keep you on track in your journey of discovery, learning, and growth. So Scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes for this episode and click the link to take the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz today.
Okay, let's get back to the discussion.
Yeah. The fastest way for a step-parent to sabotage the "I'm for you" message is by engaging in disciplinary roles too soon. And it's interesting that this is one of the most common pitfalls that step-parents fall victim to.
That's right.
It's critical, especially in the early years, to let the bio parent remain in the role of primary disciplinarian. Because step parents, they need to hold back from disciplining and instead focus on building their relationship. So if you're a step parent and this is a new concept for you, you might be asking, well, if disciplining isn't my role, then what is my role? And here it is. You're not a cop. You're a coach.
That's right. I love that. It's helpful for a step parent to adopt a mindset of being more of a coach than a parent. And we would go so far as to say, if you're just starting out, you're really at about the level of an assistant coach, right? Even backing off a little bit more. Now, don't get us wrong here. We're not at all saying that a step parent should be a buddy or a friend. That would actually be more of a peer.
Yeah.
Which that seems like it might make it easier for the kids, but it actually leaves the step parent with no authority at all. And we don't want to be in the position of the step parent being an equal with the child.
Yeah, not a buddy.
No.
You need a little bit more.
Instead, it's better to think about an assistant coach as being someone who kind of starts off with a really small amount of authority. I mean, maybe as an assistant coach, you're just the one handing out t-shirts and game schedules, right?
Something simple.
As that relationship and trust starts to build between the player and the coach and that assistant coach, then the coach's level of authority gradually increases. It's not something that's forced, it's forged over time.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, when it comes to helping stepkids feel a little less like they've just acquired another boss and more like they have a trusted person in their corner, then backing off on discipline and approaching things more like an assistant coach is one of the most powerful ways to get there. Remember, you want to be continually sending your stepkids the message that you're for them. So you'll need to stay focused on connection and not correction, as Patricia Paper now puts it. And you can do that as an assistant coach, right? The ultimate goal is gaining healthy parental authority, but that can only happen once a trusted bond has been established, and that will probably take some time. So be patient and be willing to step back from discipline and adopt that role of an assistant coach.
Now, you might be frustrated with this idea, right?
Yes,
this is
it
a
can be
frustrating thing.
Yep.
And maybe your spouse isn't disciplining quite in the way that you really want them to. Maybe you want some more structure in the home. Or maybe you're finding yourself left alone with your stepkids a lot of the time, and you have to do some level of disciplining to keep things going, right?
Yeah, you can't just let it be a free-for-all.
No. So this can be a frustrating position for a step parent. And we don't have time to go into all the strategies for these kinds of scenarios in this episode, but we've already explored a lot of this in other episodes. So if you and your partner are struggling to effectively parent, or if you're having conflict, go over and check out episodes 13 and 30 for some tips around parenting that's really going to help a step parent to discover the difference between influence and authority. There is a difference there. And these episodes will also define the bio parent's critical role in all of this. It takes two to parent. You're going to do this together. You each have a role.
Important.
And if you're a step parent that's left alone with your stepkids and you're confused about how you're supposed to handle things and keep order in the home when the bio parent is gone, we've got a great strategy for you in episode 25. So if you go back and listen to any of these episodes, and we're going to link them in the show notes, remember to think about how you can use the strategies you'll learn through the lens of being a coach rather than a cop.
That's right.
Or an assistant coach, if that's where you're at. That's okay to start there.
All right. Reason number 4 that kids tend to resist step parents is that they feel pressure to accept the step parent and the new family structure. I want to repeat a quote from Laura Petherbridge that we shared in episode 37. And we're bringing it up again because while it's not a very popular message, it is very powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Laura says, when a husband and wife insist on saying, we have no steps in this house, everyone is the same, it can push a child further away. This is one of those things that sounds wise, it sounds loving and harmonious, but it can trigger just the opposite. If the child doesn't feel that the step siblings are their brothers and sisters, it can cause tremendous pain and anger. And when we force kids to view the step parent or siblings as equal to their biological family, it becomes one more frustration over which they have no control. See, the truth is no one responds well when they feel pressured. But all too often, our culture would have us believe that blended families need to act and feel just like a first family as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Now, this is what Ron Deal, our country's leading expert, I think, on blended families, would call a pressure cooker style of cooking your step family, right? Well, when we try to cook, quote unquote, our blended family with this pressure cooker perspective, what we're really doing is attempting to force acceptance and love through pressure and expectation.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound very
It's
logical,
not
does it?
healthy.
Yeah. A parent might say something like, well, why don't you just call him dad? Or she's your new stepmom. Go ahead and give her a hug. These are kinds of messages that say things to kids like, well, what's good for me should be good for you. Now take care of me by loving and accepting my new partner and our new situation.
Yeah.
Inevitably, this creates a lot of stress. And because the expectations are so high, the lid of the pressure cooker often blows off the pot.
Yeah.
Now, the expectation and pressure for everyone to act like we're just a first family is unrealistic. And it ultimately can backfire because that pressure usually causes kids to push back and resist their step
Yeah,
parent.
they just can't handle it.
Yeah.
So Ron Deal suggests that instead we need to cook our blended family with a crock pot. The best integration style for a blended family is definitely crock pot cooking. All the ingredients are thrown together in the same pot, but each is left intact, giving affirmation to its unique origin and characteristics. When you intentionally choose this style, you're allowing time and low heat or low pressure to do its work, and that makes for an effective combination. See, the ingredients or the family members in your crock pot, they need time to soften and combine with other ingredients on their own timetable.
That's the key.
Patience is critical for your journey. Everyone in your blended family needs time. Time to adjust to new living conditions, new parenting styles, rules, and responsibilities. They need time to experience one another and develop trust, connection, and a shared history. They need time to find a sense of belonging and an identity as a family unit. And none of these things can be rushed or forced.
Yeah, that's right.
So what does this really mean? Well, it means that you can take the pressure off. That's the good news. After almost 2 decades of supporting step couples, one thing we've discovered, especially with step parents, is that there's a lot of self-imposed pressure.
Yep.
Step parents can have a tendency to inadvertently put pressure on their stepkids to bond quickly, not necessarily because they want the kids to respond in a certain way, but more because they pressure themselves into believing they need to be bonded on a certain time frame.
That's right. Yep.
So if you're feeling pressure yourself to quickly bond with your stepkids and create the perfect blended family, we want to give you permission to slow down and take that crock pot mentality. Move over into the crock pot.
Low and slow, not fast
slow.
and furious. Yeah.
Get yourself out of that pressure cooker and let bonds cook slowly over time. And we've got some helpful strategies for you over in episode 14 that'll relieve some of this self-induced pressure and also help you to examine your expectations through a more realistic lens, right? Remember, low and slow is going to lead you to those long-term wins that you're really looking for.
That's right. That's good. All right. Let's get to the final reason, number
five,
of why kids tend to resist a step parent. And the fifth one is because for most kids, embracing a step parent can create a feeling of guilt, and it creates what's called loyalty binds. Now, in most cases, there are really tight bonds and loyalties between a child and their biological parent. And so we've got to address that. We're going to just a little bit of review from episode 37. So just the way that parents are always looking out for their kids and they're on their side and they're wanting to protect them from pain, our kids can actually reciprocate those same feelings toward a parent. They often feel this intense loyalty toward their parents, and that creates a conflict in them when it comes to connecting with a step parent. They have a perceived tension between loving bio mom and accepting stepmom, or that same tension exists between dad and stepdad.
Yeah, these are between the two homes.
That's right. So loyalty binds are a pretty important and fairly big topic that we don't have time to really dive deep into this episode. However, we've thrown a lot of different episodes at you, but I'm going to give you one more. Episode 29 is fully dedicated to just exploring loyalty binds. So you may want to go check that out. In fact, we share one of Patricia Papernow's loyalty bind talks that you can have with your stepkids in that episode. And by the way, all of these episodes that we've mentioned today are going to be linked in the show notes. So you can go check it out there. Now, in addition to heading over to episode 29, here's a couple of quick tips that can help you to reduce the tension that comes with these loyalty binds for your stepkids. First, you want to give your stepkids the space and the attention, really, to revisit the past when they need to. I remember growing up in my stepfamily, and it was just not acceptable to talk about my bio mom when I was around my dad and stepmom. They never really explicitly said that was off limits, but we all just knew that it was not okay. What that did inside of me was increase my fierce loyalty to the memory of my mom. And for those of you who don't know, she passed away when I was very young. And it kept me from feeling fully safe and comfortable with my stepmom. It created that loyalty bind, even though my mom was gone. You know, my mom was a part of my past that my dad and stepmom didn't want to hear anything about. I mean, as an adult now, I can understand how that could have been painful for them to listen to. However, it might have released me a bit from this bind that I felt between my present and my past. And that may have led me to a bit more connection between me and my stepmom.
Sure, yeah. And this isn't only true when a child has lost a parent to death. When kids are moving back and forth between two homes, they need the freedom to express what they miss about their first family and whatever they might want to share about what's going on in that other home in the present. And again, this might be uncomfortable or feel a bit threatening to you as a step parent.
Sure.
However, the more you show that you're willing to listen and are comfortable accepting that that other home is a part of who your stepkids are, the more you're showing that you're comfortable accepting their relationship with their bio parent in that other home.
That's right.
In the end, that can really help to loosen the loyalty binds and opens up opportunities for you to build a genuine bond with your stepkids.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's the key point here on this one? Listen to loosen. Even when it's not the most comfortable topic.
That's right.
I know it can be hard, but if you want to help loosen the loyalty binds and build a trusted relationship, then your stepkids need to know you're willing to listen to them when they need to share.
All right, so let's recap these 5 reasons that kids tend to resist step parents and what you're going to do to help break down those walls of resistance and create more connection. Okay, number 1 was step parents represent the end of a dream, but you're going to live your truth rather than trying to prove your truth. Second was they perceive the step parent, you as a step parent, are a threat. But you're going to reduce that threat by showing the kids that you're for them. You're going to keep speaking that message to them. Third, they already have 2 parents and they just don't see a need for any more. Well, you're not going to be a cop. You're going to be a coach, maybe even an assistant coach. Fourth, kids can feel pressured to accept the step parent and the new family structure. But you're going to get out of the pressure cooker and into the crock pot. Remember, low and slow leads to long-term wins. And finally, embracing a step parent can create guilt and loyalty binds, but you're going to show up really well and you're going to listen to loosen those loyalty binds.
Yeah, you can do this.
That's right. All right, there you go.
Now, earlier we mentioned Laura Retzma's book called In Their Shoes, where she shares a powerful story about her own experience growing up in a blended family. So next week, we're going to talk about some key points that Lauren makes to help us understand at an even deeper level what our kids and stepkids might be experiencing. We're going to do a little book report.
There you go.
That's
right.
awesome. Yeah. So you don't want to miss that episode.
That's right. We can't wait to see you there. But for now, that makes this episode a wrap.
Until next time.